Sid White is a successful American economic professional with more than 40 years of experience in private and public sectors. He grew up in the small rural town of Reinhold, Pennsylvania, adjacent to and influenced by Amish community. His parents were sharecroppers until they moved into town for factory jobs. They had an incredible work ethic. Church every Sunday, community caring, mother made food for hobos and cared for neighbors. Father had 8th grade education, mother finished high school. Their dream was to send the son to college. Sid made their dreams come true and he went to Albright College on a scholarship and graduated with high grades. But this program is not about his professional achievements. It is about life-changing humanitarian event that he and his wife Anne experienced. It is a heartwarming story of a true miracle which began in 1995. God had plans for you in Georgia, and this country became very special to you. What was the story behind it?
Wow, what a great question. And, you sort of, by your question, capture the essence of a very unique and very important, a very cherished part of my wife's and my life together, and the way it all started. With our relationship, the country of Georgia was in 1995. My wife and I decided to adopt our 2 beautiful daughters. And my wife searched throughout the world, actually. And she looked in South America and China, and through agencies, found a beautiful group, Cradle of Hope, located in Washington, D.C., and we started working with that agency. And we had decided we wanted to adopt children aged 5 to 5.5. This agency connected with the Georgian Kutaisi Children's Home. We got these 2 Polaroid pictures of these little 5.5-year-old girls. They were Georgian. They looked, in their picture in the orphanage, in tough shape. They were in dresses that were a little bit raggedy, so just to give you a sense. But we also had some pictures shared with us of the orphanage and the Georgian folks that were taking care of them, so you could see that they were getting love and care, and the Georgian folks were doing all they possibly could. Anyway, so I set the stage. The pictures come in the mail, and we opened the envelope, and my wife and I looked at these 2 pictures, which were so different than what we had been looking towards with the agency. And it took us about a couple of minutes to decide that this was our new family. Why? Because it just was. There wasn't really ever in my mind a question that this was not something that we would embrace immediately. Instead, we did. So that's why I say it was kind of sort of a religious experience. My beliefs are very Christian, and when things like that happen, you can't explain them. All right, there's no real explanation that goes along that says, yeah, I'm a scientist as well, so you can't sort of box this or corral it with logic and science, especially not in this case.
Well, it was a plan for you, and you are doing the God's will.
Yeah, I mean, what else could it be? There is no real other explanation. So it happened just that way. It was amazing. We contacted the agency, in turn contacted the orphanage and said, you know, these are our girls, they're ours.
You instantly fall in
Yes,
love with.
absolutely. You know, when I show you the pictures, you will understand why. So our daughters had been abandoned at the hospital at birth. They were in the orphanage for 5 years, and under the international law...
They were sisters?
No, they're unrelated. Very much sisters now, of course.
Oh, yeah. No,
You
I
know,
mean
but-
before.
Yeah, before, yeah. They were acquaintances in the orphanage, but they weren't real close until we brought them out. And that's where the closeness developed. You could see it happening even on the first encounter with us as a family. So we, at that point, the international adoption process meandered through the Georgian courts, and all the paperwork was in order. Their new birth certificates were issued with us as the parents, and the new passports were issued. And we were in California, they were here, the court process was finished, they were our children, our birth certificate, we were their parents, all official, recorded, and now we had to figure out how to get to them and get them to us. That became the next process to work on. Turned out that the agency that we were working with and the facilitators and the folks that were helping us decided that it would be less dangerous for us to come to Tbilisi to pick them up, or Kutaisi, or to Georgia, and instead have them escorted to us in Moscow. My wife and I take the flight from LA, we arrive in Moscow, and 3 days later, the girls were supposed to come to us at the Moscow National Airport, not the international one. We flew into the international airport, by the way, which is, you know, just Americanized or Westernized kind of trip. We picked the girls up eventually at the national airport, and that story is incredible as well.
And how was that you first met them, that emotion?
Here, the emotion was, well, I don't mean to take too much time, to build it up a little bit and put it in context. They told us that the girls would arrive on a Tuesday. Okay, we hop in the car, we get there, they didn't arrive that day.
Wow.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. And no one really knew where, what, you know, information and whatnot. Then a day later, I believe it was, just 1 or 2 days later, I mean, it's a little bit fuzzy, we got a call that they're arriving at the national airport. Again, drove there, and my wife and I are standing there, and she has the camera, I have the camera, we videoed most of everything we could. The door was framed with, you know, thick concrete and very dark and dingy. They were wearing our clothing because we had pre-sent suitcases full of clothing for them to wear. Our shoes, our little raincoat we had, some little boots because it was March, so it was a little bit chilly. And they came off the plane, they walked out the door, and they called me Mama.
Oh,
And
Mama,
wife,
because that's Georgia.
yes. And my wife is dated, and amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh.
Our one daughter was a little bit shy, she was a little bit standoffish.
They were happy?
Yes, very happy. Our one daughter, Elizabeth, was very shy for about a day. And then she sort of took a role as the leader, the caregiver, because that's in her heart and in her soul. So she was very concerned about her new sister and very concerned that everything was smooth. And if you met her, so you know she's like a hospitality guru. She wants everything to be fine for everyone, and is so very incredibly sensitive and wanting to please. I liken that to her Georgian DNA and
Right.
the hospitality. And by the way, she works in hospitality now as well. So Rebecca, her sister, who was much smaller than Elizabeth, climbed on top of my shoulders.
Oh,
So I had,
that's so
there's the
sweet.
beautiful picture. I have Rebecca sitting here with her legs sort of draped down my neck, and Elizabeth is standing next to me, and my leg and my wife is snapping picture.
Well,
Amazing.
every your hard work was worth it.
That was the reward. That
Right.
was what it was all about. So my wife is teary-eyed, and we're hopping in the car, and it was a little Russian, what is it, Vada or the little square car, the typical Russian kind of car. So the four of us, the two girls and my wife and I, took the back seat.
Volga, you mean? Volga?
Yes, yes. And we drove to the Marina District. We stayed with a family, and across the hall was our interpreter and whatnot. And we stayed there for the next 8, 9, 10 days. And we bonded. And it was a typical kind of Russian apartment layout. There were the 2 rooms, the kitchen and the bathroom. And we had one whole room, the living room for us. And we bonded, we nested, we had our meals with Valentina, who was our host. And the rest of the time we would tour in Moscow and take care of more and more details.
How did they get used to America and that
Well,
lifestyle and that speed and different world
Very different world. The first
compared to
impressions.
Kutaisi, Georgia, there in that house?
Exactly. It started a little bit in Moscow because they were physically not in great shape. It was a little bit rough. Their muscular structure was not developed as well as it could be, probably because of the nourishment. They had a difficult time walking as much as we did. So we took it very slow and developed with them a very sort of steady but very slow and caring pace. The university doctors said, look they have been in an orphanage. They haven't seen the rest of the world. It's probably the first time they've seen some of the things they were seeing, cars and pigeons and dogs and whatever. And he was brilliant. He said, when you get them to the U.S., take your time. Do it slowly, which we did.
How was the communication of a language?
This was very interesting because we learned 30 words of Georgian. I'd say 30, maybe a little bit less, from a Georgian couple who owned a little Georgian store in Los Angeles. So it was kind of okay. The girls spoke Georgian between themselves, amongst themselves, and my wife and I sort of directed, added, spoke to them as best we could. So it was working just fine. On the weekends, we would go to a very large, grassy park that we had in Los Angeles. Balboa Park was its name, and just football fields of grass. And we would let them do what our doctor in Moscow said to do, was let them run. Let them just run free. And we would do that. And believe it or not, they would just run like this. And I would wait until they get, and I run and run and run. But we would do that for months, several. They didn't really understand boundaries. Okay, they just didn't get it for a while. And that sort of slowly came. But it was like the juxtaposition from where they were, which is kind of sort of restrained, to total freedom. And that kind of balancing act, it kind of back and forth, really worked very well.
I know that Elizabeth graduated the college already, and she's a talented painter, right?
Absolutely, talented painter. She was selected to be a speaker at graduation football field, and I have the videotape of it. And she starts by saying, opening by saying, and a miracle happened.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth White. Please give her a warm welcome. Years ago, I began life in an orphanage in the Republic of Georgia, formerly the Soviet Union. I lived in an orphanage for 5 years without love, attention, or proper care. When I was 5, a true miracle happened. I was one of 2 girls adopted by 2 of the most loving and caring people in the world. Today, both my sister, Rebecca, and I are graduating. She and I are living proof that miracles do happen. I've had to go through many obstacles to get to where I am today. I have had to learn a new language and begin a new life. I have had to trust the people around me to help me grow and succeed, and I have also had to go through good and bad times to help me become a stronger, better person. Today, we graduates all look the same. We all have our black and blue gowns, our hats, and our tassels. And even though we may look the same, we all have our own stories to tell.
Elizabeth and Rebecca tied you to Georgia. So
Yes.
you start doing your business here, your job here. It became your second homeland, right?
It did. When we had always, sort of growing up as a family, been totally aware, but we really didn't have the time. I was working, Elizabeth was in school. It costs a lot to get back to Georgia, just the plane fare alone. But I always said to the girls, once you graduate from college, then you will have the opportunity, and we'll make this happen. We need to all go to Georgia and see. So Elizabeth graduated from university, and this was kind of planned, and she and I were the first ones to come. We went to Kutaisi and we looked for the orphanage.
Oh, really?
And it was gone.
It was gone?
Yeah. What happened was, and Georgia changed its orphanage kind of structure to now where it's foster homes and the orphanages are no more. It's kind of like the U.S. but not well defined, and it's changed dramatically since we adopted the girls.
Yeah.
Changed dramatically. Elizabeth and I decided we wanted to see an elementary school because that maybe people knew, and fascinating story because...
Did you remember anything?
Not really, but when we walked into a classroom, I stood back and I could tell her mind was going, I went to Montessori school in LA, California, and this is Kutaisi, little desk, maybe here. And, she was, I can't imagine what her emotions were.
Wow.
And we would talk a little bit about them, and I think they were intense. I could tell, but I couldn't really put myself in her shoes. I couldn't get there. And that trip, that drive from Zestaponi, where we stayed at the Zestaponi guest house, and walked around town was an incredibly emotional experience for her. I could tell. And then we sort of went from there to Batumi. Bright lights and, sat by the sea and whatnot. Got in, did that a couple of days and then drove back to Tbilisi and spent the rest of the month sort of learning about Georgia as much as we could.
Probably you never even think about being Georgia if there was Elizabeth and Rebecca.
That's
right?
true. Yeah, that's very true. But I mean that's kind of the miracle
It's
of
kind
life
of a discovery.
It is a discovery.
Hidden treasure for you.
An incredible hidden treasure. I have so many beautiful Georgian friends. I have such an experience. My Georgian neighbors are brilliant. They take care of me. They worry about me. They bring me Easter presents. I mean, and so our family is now in two places. It's incredible. I was so honored to be given a permanent residency in Georgia. So I have my, I guess I would call it kind of sort of like a green card. Yeah. And it was, I literally, because of the adoption process, I'm officially Elizabeth's father, and she has her Georgian ID number still, and I just said, here's my daughter, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was all done and all good. So
well, you deserve not just green card, but honorary citizenship. That's what you deserve because you saved such two beautiful lives.
Thank you.
You saved, and you just made a difference, not just for them, but for Georgia too.
For me, walking in the streets of Georgia, and having my Georgian friends nearby, I feel incredibly safe.
Yeah.
The police force is incredibly helpful and wonderful.
Georgia is a very safe country
It's
right
incredible.
now. Yeah.
I walk more at 3 a.m. here. I might be across the river at a restaurant, or I might just not sleep. And I can go out, I can walk on Rustavelli at 3 a.m. and feel perfectly safe.
Right.
And I couldn't necessarily do that in LA, in some of the neighborhoods that I worked in. It was a little bit tougher. I don't have any negative experiences dealing with folks in Georgia. I can't for the life of me remember any kind of situation where I felt uncomfortable for any reason at all.
Right. Well, that's your country.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, probably that was already written before you born. So
Probably was. I mean,
you kind of became very native here, and it grew in it, and you became some ways Georgian.
Well, thank you for that. I always, as I think about it, it's fascinating because my wife and I came to Georgia in 1995 and adopted our daughters. And the one feeling that I get most spending my time here is feeling like Georgia has adopted me back. It's an amazing feeling. And every time I go...
And maybe it saved you back.
Maybe it saved me back.
Right.
It was kind of meant to be. I get asked most times, why Georgia? Why this? Why that? Why? I mean, come on, you can't. There is no answer.
What is that miracle Georgia has that anyone comes and they cannot leave? They just cannot leave. Georgia stays in their mind forever, and it calls them, and they come back, and they just never the same.
You are never the same.
What is that miracle thing you think?
By the way, there's a beautiful video that's done by the Tourist Administration that basically says that once you have experienced this life, your life will be forever changed. And it's feeling the Georgian hospitality and the feeling that you are a gift from God for the Georgians who provide that hospitality for you. And you really feel that when you're at a Georgian supper table. And ceremoniously, it's not that structured, but it's a feeling, and you get that no matter where you are, what you're doing. It's a constant kind of glowing, sort of happy feeling. And that's important. And it's what brings you back all of the time.
Why Americans should like to retire overseas, or what, how you feel
I'm going to answer it this way. I'm going to say for a lot of people, there are a lot of different reasons. I think for some, it can be a money issue. Depends on your retirement and whatnot. For me, I'm blessed to have a pension, not a moderate pension, not anything super largesse, but I could live comfortably here. Mm-hmm. The cost of living in Georgia is about 30%, maybe a little bit to the upside from that, as it would be in the U.S. The medical costs are much less, and food prices are less, and it's just all the way around. But for me, it's more of the experience as well, and I know other expats are here because of that sense. A few of them are here for business opportunities because Georgia has a very aggressive digital nomad program, and easy to do business here. And so it's a myriad of different reasons for different people. But for myself, it's, well, my story now, so it's a little bit of everything put together. Mostly it's because the girls are, from here.
Right.
Yeah, and for the family now, it's become something where it's a good thing, a good place to be.
Thank you so much you come in, and I enjoy this conversation. And you are a true Christian who makes brings a difference in people's lives, and you change people's lives, and you giving them right advices. You're giving them the bright future with your advices, consulting firm here in Georgia, and it just.
Well, thank you.
Blessing to have you.
I feel blessed. I think I've been blessed by God. I've been blessed by my Georgian experience, and it all rolls into I have had an incredible life, and I'm a happy guy, and I try my best to sort of share what I've been through and my happiness, and life is good.